So I'm Anand, CEO of Theragenix. So we are a company building a scalable off-the-shelf gene therapy platform which can treat various diseases. And we are essentially targeting diseases that are going to impact the world's population due to aging.
Thank you so much for that. And of course, we're here because Theragenix is in a fundraising process right now. So of course, top of mind for me is what made you decide to partner with BeFound for this fundraising strategy?
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. So I would say that it were initial interactions with James. So we'd been talking and discussing for quite a while, what I felt was the honesty from James. He acknowledged that this was a new area for BeFound to jump into. And before kind of committing or promising me that you would be able to raise money, he said, let me kind of do my due diligence and come back to you to see if I can help you. And for me, that was very crucial because it signified that, you want to do a good job and you were, let's say, not really, trying to get clients just to make money. So for me as a CEO, just like with investors, we want to build trust. I think from my side, it was the trust factor that was, very positive indication that if we go ahead, we would potentially, have a good collaboration.
How was the experience working with the BeFound team once you did start working with us?
I found that the interaction and the turnover at times in terms of questions and answers was quite comforting. Of course, I've been busy sometimes in not being able to give you an answer right away, and you've been busy trying to process things. But I think overall, the interaction seemed quite nice, and Slack was a good way to communicate and exchange information.
Were there any aspects in particular for our service and working with us that you found most valuable?
Yeah, I think what was most valuable is, for let's say some of the earlier meetings that we had, you used your resources and databases to give me an idea of what the investor was investing into, what they were doing, their deals. And I think that was quite handy in terms of, let's say, connecting with the investor and, let's say, their current portfolio companies to see if we can have some synergies with Theragenix or to kind of use that as a conversation opener. So that was really valuable in terms of adding that extra layer of information. Normally, I would have to go and find that, and that's not difficult. But again, everything is about saving time and being prepared. So I think that really helped me, let's say, be better prepared and save me time as well. So I appreciated that a lot.
Of course, and founders often talk about the time-saving component in working with a service such as us as well. If you were to do this solo, how do you feel like that would have impacted your fundraising experience?
Good question. And the honest answer is it's difficult to quantify, but I think it's almost always as a founder, when you're fundraising, you feel alone. And I think that's really difficult because, you're trying to raise money, you don't know whom to go to, you are checking multiple websites and so on. And I think partnering with BeFound, I felt that while I could go and look at my niche network or target certain people, I also had guys who were also on the lookout for me, looking at a broader group. And let's say I would definitely not have been able to email 1,000 people or more than 1,000 that you've done. I don't know how many emails you sent out. So that would not have been possible. But it was more about knowing that, okay, there are potential leads coming from this campaign and I can focus on mine, and together, we drive the success. In the end, it's about getting Theragenix funded and taking the therapy to patients. And this was a very strong channel for me to feel that, I had a partner in this process.
Appreciate that. And, that's actually really interesting as well. Maybe something we can touch on about what specific results have you seen since working with BeFound? Because, from our conversations, we understand that you've had, quite a few meetings, you've had some of those second conversations, and you've even met investors that are, some are strategic, some they don't have the domain expertise, and, some that you've actually become, or you're even talking about your interest in together. Can you tell us a little bit about that entire experience?
Yeah, so I think this has been quite interesting. And honestly, I did not know what to expect from such a campaign. And I've been, let's say, pleasantly surprised by the quality of investors who turned up in the calls. One of the key things that I found was that sometimes you have investors who are listed as, okay, I'm not interested in biotech, or I'm not interested in medtech, I'm a consumer investor, but they might be, let's say, wanting to diversify or pivot, and you don't necessarily see that on their website or an open promotion. But I found that when you send the email, and some of the people, as I told you, I've spoken with, if I had looked at them by myself, I would never have thought of reaching out to them, because their website does not say anything about biotech. But it's very interesting that you can trigger and activate these investors by putting a proposition in front of them, and if it somehow aligns with their strategic priorities, shift or diversification, they get onto a call. So from my end, it's been, let's say, I would look at, let's say, two types of investors. One who are generic, who want to get into the space, and there the biggest challenge for me has been to explain the nuances of biotech, because everybody who is not invested in pharma or biotech come and ask me, when are you generating revenue, or how many customers you have, which are standard questions for probably 90% of the businesses worldwide. And it's about articulating and explaining to them how we would generate revenue in terms of partnerships or deals or service models, and not necessarily that we have a product now that is built and that it needs to go through very regulated stages of testing and approval. So that's been one. On the interested investors side who've had experience with biotech, I think that's been quite interesting conversations as well. So some have been, very curious and excited. They are, in general, quite excited about our platform prospects. And when we have spoken to them about gene therapy in a powder as something we are pioneering, they've all been quite excited as well. So looking forward to, let's say, seeing how some of these conversations pan out into, let's say, tangible outcomes in terms of them writing us a check.
Absolutely. Very excited to see where these conversations go. And in getting to these conversations as well, as we've seen throughout the campaign, we've kind of, evolved our way of meeting with these investors and educating them a little bit about Theragenix. Can you tell us about what you've learned throughout this process as well, specifically around how you want to communicate, and I guess in a bit more of a layman's terms with these investors, and whether or not that has changed your perspective on how you pitch?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and sometimes a little bit difficult, and you have to explain scientific terminology and concepts. So one of the tools that we use is typically to any investor I'm speaking with, especially more so if they are a generic investor interested in moving into the space. We play our video, which is designed particularly for laymen, and to, let's say, promote science and understanding to the general public. So that usually helps them understand what's happening, and when they see something visual, they also get a better understanding, and they ask us a lot more questions, and I can explain to them, hey, this is what happens, this is what we do. So that is something very strong. We've also looked at simplifying our pitch deck, or making more visuals in the pitch deck instead of a lot of text. And let's say in a general conversation, we typically not try to go too much into scientific data, but explain what the outcome is. And if they are asking more, we kind of show the graphs and explain things to them. But in general, it's more about the concept and the vision. And then, let's say, depending on where they want to go and where their appetite and interest is, we dive into the technicals.
Awesome. A lot of learnings there. And of course, we know we're not done yet, so I'm sure there's a lot more to learn. But I guess the important question for us as well, it's been a pleasure working with you, but would you recommend other startups to work with BeFound if they are looking to fundraise?
Yes, I would recommend. So a couple of things here that I want to highlight. Let's say one of the great learnings for me, and let's say an aha moment, if you would like to, is that what you've done now, especially with your leads that you have generated and the meetings I've had, is that it is possible to kind of use tech with people who have not really worked in biotech or so, to still get meaningful calls for companies. So it's almost like you are domain agnostic in that sense, that you can support all kinds of so I think that for me was an eye-opener. So while James did his due diligence and said we could you and we can really help you, I was still skeptical in the sense that the market is quite bad, and how are you going to get to investors? So in that sense, I've been pleasantly surprised. And what I've learned is that, from both sides, me educating you on what the business is and how you can answer some of the early queries. And let's say, you telling me how to shape some of these. So that collaboration has worked well. So I think for investors, at least in terms of getting to meaningful meetings, I would say that, they can definitely consider you. Of course, as you say, we are not done yet. We have more things to do. And of course, we are waiting for the check, which will make all of us happy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the kind words, and definitely looking forward to finishing up this campaign together.